Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have another pen for review here and to do an unboxing of. It's a pen that's been in my collection probably for over a year now. And it comes in this slightly thicker Visconti box. It's just a standard yellow clamshell box though. So let me open this up and I'll show you the pen. So it comes in a slightly thicker clamshell box. It's the old style one where literally you have this pull-out drawer and you have the brochure inside it. So this is the brochure that basically shows the Visconti Villa, how Visconti make pens, shows some various heads of state, shows some actors and actresses using the pen, and then it just shows some of the range of the pens here. So you have like the Mayor, we have the Christian Bible, the Istos Arachnus, and then some of the more lower range pens, the Rembrandts, the Divinas, and Michelangelos, the Homo sapiens, and that's really it. So that's the brochure booklet. I'd love to call it a manual, but it doesn't show you anything about the pen or the filling system. So let's open this up and we'll show you what this is. So this is an Opera Metal, and you have the Visconti logo here. It's embossed into the leather or faux leather there, and so it comes. This is the Visconti Opera Metal Monza. Now this is a nice pen because I like the black versus the red, and I like that it's a metallic red. Now it comes with this snorkel, and I'll show you in a bit what that does. But this is the pen itself. So if I shut this up, you'll be able to see the pen here. It is a lovely, lovely pen. It's made of all metal. I believe it's aluminium, but it is really, really nice. So looking from the cap here, you have the standard Visconti logo. Now they've actually made this in a red metallic paint. Normally the clip would just be a palladium or chrome type finish. It's a standard spring loaded clip. You have the Visconti finial there, and that's done in black, and it's sort of highlighted it with a red circle. So they've continued this red theme throughout, and this is, I think, a really, really classic pen. Like, I don't normally like black pens, but the way that Visconti have actually done this pen and designed it, it's really nice. Now you'll see here the centre band says Monza, because this is the Opera Metal Monza. Now normally it's actually quite strange, because normally the operas will actually say opera there, so they decided to change that and just put Monza in. Now it is a faceted pen. You'll see that it is actually thicker as it gets to the centre of the pen, and then tapers off to the end cap here. Now this end cap doesn't actually do anything because it's not a piston or a power vac filler, and I'll show you this. So if I uncap it, now it has the Visconti hook safe lock mechanism here, which is very, very smooth. It has a red metallic section, and then it has a Smart Touch nib. Now these are typically called CR18 or Chromium 18. Now chromium really is just a fancy word for steel, that it has a slightly more chrome type look to it. Now this nib actually is plated black, so it actually sort of matches the rest of the pen quite nicely. So in terms of the filling system, I'll show you here. It is a standard international converter. Now I actually like this, to be honest. I find it's really nice. Now, in terms of the snorkel here, I'll show you this, and so the initial thought that most people have is that this is the snorkel, so it has like this rubbery section in here. Now you would think that you would put the nib in here and fill the nib, but the problem is this is actually a little bit too tight, and I'm not going to try and do it too much here, because what will happen is basically you will pull the whole of the nib and feed out. So that's really not the way to fill this pen, and unfortunately with Visconti they don't provide any instructions in most of their pens. So most people just try to fill it by putting the nib in here. But as I understand it, that's really not what you do with this. So what you do, I'll show you here if I zoom out a little bit. Unscrew, because it's a screw converter. The idea is, I believe, that you put the converter in here because it's actually a better fit. And then you fill the converter up. Now, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that. I guess the first initial feeling is, okay, but I'd much rather saturate the nib and feed by putting that into the ink bottle. So, the second feeling is, in theory, if this works, okay, maybe it's not a bad system. So I am going to stick this into a 30ml bottle, and I am going to try and twist up ink. Now, the problem is, it doesn't pull up any ink. And I have a number of these snorkels, and again, still no ink. And you can see that I've actually suppressed or submerged the snorkel there a fair bit. So, to be honest, these snorkels, as far as I can see, just do not work. They don't work if you put them onto the converter. And you can see there, it's actually got ink around the converter there, around the base of the converter, but it's not actually just sucking ink up. So I really don't know like what the point is of these snorkels, because they just don't work. Now you could say, okay, well you should really do this via the nib, and by putting the snorkel over the nib, and I would agree that that probably is the best way of doing it. But the problem is when you do that and you try to pull it out, you pull out basically the nib and feed gets stuck in there. So again, that's not the way to fill this. So I really think this was a terrible invention by Visconti to have these snorkels. Oh, and I got ink everywhere now because it was all in that snorkel. Just get the red ink off of my hand so it doesn't look as though I'm bleeding. Quite a bit of ink there. So really, you're actually left with inking this pen the conventional way, which is taking the bottle, taking the converter, and just putting the nib into the ink and sucking it up the regular way. And voila. Like, I've got a little bit of an air pocket there, so let's try this once more. And there we have it. We actually have a nice full fill of ink. So it's actually really frustrating that Visconti gives you this lovely snorkel, but you can't use it. It's just it's useless. Really is useless. And I've got this on a number of. I've got 2 opera metals. They both came with snorkels. I thought, well, okay, maybe one of the snorkels is defunct, but no. They both snorkels on each of the pens. I've tried swapping them around, and I get exactly the same results. That if I try to put the snorkel on the nib, it pulls the nib out. If I put the snorkel on the converter, it just doesn't. It's not enough suction to suck up the ink. So I really don't know how they're supposed to work. But and I've even left the snorkel on for about a minute just to see if it's like a delayed reaction, and it's still not. So so I tend to fill this pen just the conventional way, which is just putting the section into the ink bottle. So in terms of the pen, let's move this out the way a bit. Just wipe the nib off a bit. So I just really wanted to show you here that is a kind of issue with the design of this pen, or the, not necessarily the pen, but the snorkel. So if you decide to get one and you think, oh, it's got a snorkel, let's try using it. I'd love to hear how you get on, because I really have not been able to get the snorkel to work. I've tried every which way, and it just doesn't work. So I think that's enough about that. Let's do some size measurements. And the full length of the pen, we're looking around about 145, maybe 46 millimeters, and it's around about 69 millimeters for the cap. Now, uncapped, the body of the pen to the tip of the tines, we're looking around about 130 millimeters. Now, in terms of weight, now this is a metal pen, so it's going to be a little bit heavier. So it's just over 43 grams in weight. The cap itself, we are looking at just under 15 grams. And the body with ink in the converter, we're looking at just under 23 grams. So let's do a check with a comparison with some other pens. So left to right, we have the Visconti Luxor, we have the Visconti Belgica, we have the Pelican M800 Royal Gold Ardent, we have the Visconti Speakeasy, we have the Visconti Opera Metal Monza, we have the Visconti Opera Silver Dust, the Visconti Homo Sapiens London Fog, the Visconti, not Visconti, it's the Classic Pens LB5, the Visconti Opera Master River Thames, and the Visconti Metropolitan, and this is in the green, stacked celluloid. So let's do a writing sample. Now I love that it has this hook safe lock on it. It is a really nice quick uncapping, about a quarter of a turn. So this is Visconti Opera Metal Monza, and this is a broad nib, and the ink in here is diamine, and it's Matador. Now, the ink is it's a red, so red inks and orange inks tend not to be that wet. But this is a fire hose of a nib. Now this is a steel nib, bear in mind. So it's a very firm nib. It's not going to have any bounce or any spring to it. It's almost a nail. But in terms of vertical lines, you see you have quite a a broad line here. Now, if I try to push it a little bit more, you might be able to push, just coax a little bit more out, but it is still a very stiff nib. But I do like it. It's very, very smooth and very, very wet. And although a lot of people don't like the Visconti chromium nibs, I really do like it. And you can see here, in terms of the nib itself, how the feed wraps around, or the whole of the nib wraps around the feed there. And it does that to actually try and sort of really sort of ensure that that the feed doesn't dry out. And to be honest, I don't have this ever drying out on me. So in terms of wetness, let's do a wetness test here. So it's quite a wet nib. It's not quite a fire hose nib. Normally I would say a fire hose nib is to around about here, about half the width of the page. But as you can see, it's quite a wet nib. So it is a lovely writer. Now the snorkel is a bit of a gimmick as far as I'm concerned. I really don't like the snorkel. I just don't use it. The snorkel gets put away. It never gets used. But I do like this pen, and I do like how it writes. It's a really, really nice pen. The weight is good. The size is good. Normally I wouldn't go for a chromium nib. I think they are a little bit overpriced for what they are. I picked up this pen for good value, so for me, it wasn't a bad price. So typically these sell for around about £450, and I think I picked it up for about half of that price. So it was a really good price. So I decided, what the heck, let's go and buy it. So there you go. That's the video review of the Visconti Opera Metal Monza. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.